Hello there. Welcome to Blitz Transmissions. I'm Tommy, and this is episode 18 of the Blitzcast. Before we get into the content of this episode, make sure to check out all the links in the description below. If you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, you should subscribe, and if you want to check out the social media links, that includes my Instagram page, a separate Instagram page for Blitz bounties, which are my collection updates and things of that nature. You'll also be able to check out my X page, which is essentially just Twitter renamed. And you'll also be able to check out the link to the Discord. The Discord has daily conversations with awesome Star Wars fans, young and old. We kind of have a more tight-knit community of the Blitz Brigade going on in there. So if you'd like to talk with some peeps, definitely check out the Discord. And if you'd be interested in the action figure side of things here on the YouTube channel, Blitz Transmissions, I do have a channel membership, the Rancor Battalion channel membership, just 99 cents a month, gives you access to some of my reviews early before they go out to the public. You can check that out, linked in the description below. You knew it was going to happen. I'm here, so that means that my lovely co-hostess, Jen, is here. Jen.
Hi.
How are we doing? What's new?
Back to work. Working hard or hardly working. And
we haven't podcasted in a year.
I haven't seen you guys since last year. So yeah, just working, and my podcast trailer is out for The Real Normal.
The podcast trailer.
And new episodes will be every Sunday. So if you watch or listen to the trailer and you're like, that sounds interesting, then look out for this Sunday at 8 a.m. for the first ever The Real Normal podcast episode.
Holy cow. Definitely go support Jen's solo podcast, a more real-life podcast. Not going to be much Star Wars talk going on over there. I know, much more lame, but if you'd like to, you can go check that out.
If you hate it, just don't tell me. Just leave it.
Aside from that, anything else you want to talk about? I really don't think we had... It was just the New Year's, really.
Yeah, what do we do?
Nothing much.
Drank in the new year.
Be merry.
And,
did not hit a deer on the way home.
Yeah, small wins.
That's what matters.
Small wins.
So...
What have you been doing?
What have I been doing? Working. Now I'm working again and just working on content for the channel. Sleeping not a lot, as adults do. That's really it. You know what? I'll tell you what we're going to do this week is talk about Skeleton Crew. Whoa.
Skeletons.
We have episode... Just what I wanted for Christmas. Skeletons. We are here, guys, this week to talk about the Skeleton Crew episode 6. And I do not have the channel title pulled up this week. So I'm going to pull that up now. Jen, initial thoughts going into episode 6 of the Skeleton Crew. We came off of last week.
High.
The tensions were high.
Tensions were high. This is episode 6 of 8.
Yeah, 6 of 8.
So we have 2 more weeks left. And I really like this episode. I watched it by myself.
We did watch it separately.
You watched it on New Year's Eve.
Somewhat drunkenly watched it at 3 a.m. on New Year's Day.
I chose to sleep and watch it at another time. But I really enjoyed this episode. I know that, like you said, it was, moving them towards the third act a little bit, but I thought it was a great episode to focus on the kids' development a little bit more.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
I feel like up until this point, there's been moments, and we've talked about them on the show, but it's obviously big moves towards the main plot,
Yeah.
Talking about the At and lore, talking about Jod a little bit and seeing what his deal is. and then the kids had their moments, and I feel like this episode was their time to really grow
Most definitely.
as characters.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoyed that. I know I've talked about this here before of that's where I really pull from stories is all the character growth and character reflections in the stories. So
Yeah.
I really like this episode.
Yeah, for me, this episode was a lot of fun to watch, too. Again, really, in the grand scheme of things, this episode really puts our heroes in a place where they can move into the third act as one unit. This was the Trials and Tribulations episode, where the group splits up, kind of how a lot of things happen in the second act of a trilogy. Your heroes split up, they face challenges on their own in smaller groups, and they work through those challenges together, come back together stronger, and they're ready to go for the third act to face the final boss. It was great. It was good. I mean, I literally, I have not a single episode of Skeleton Crew. We are now 3/4 of the way through the show, and I have yet to have an episode that I'm like, that was even like, that was mid. You know, like I've enjoyed every single episode. Mm-hmm. It's great. So is there anything that you want to jump into first? I know a couple days ago we were briefly discussing one particular part of the episode. I didn't know if you wanted to jump into that first or save it a little later.
I mean, we'll save it. What was the main plot points?
Well, the main plot points of this is we pick up, obviously, as we have the whole show, right where we left off. Mm-hmm. Where the kids are going down the slides, which is totally a Goonies reference. They're going down the slides underneath Takranad's lair, and they get to like a secret exit. And
the Krabbies.
Jod gets away, gets caught by his old pirate crew, now Brutus's crew, and has to go stand trial with the pirates. And then Jod obviously has his conversation, and then the kids have their plot. Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, like I said, I really enjoyed the focus on the kids.
Yeah.
Fern and KB's little tiff at the beginning of the episode, leading to both of them having some friendship reflection.
Definitely.
And then they're able to come back at the end. I thought that was, again, we've talked about this many times of how this show actually shows kids being kids and
acting their age.
You know, the writers really know what they're talking about and make these characters very realistic and relatable. So I thought that whole sequence of them fighting because they're, you know, one's being the leader and one's the follower, but the follower doesn't want to explain why they don't want to follow anymore, and you know, miscommunications, but also stubbornness on both sides, really.
Yeah, really.
I thought that was totally realistic. It made me think about, like, so many times in elementary school of those conversations with, you know, the pushy person on the playground or something, and, you know, how those blow up very easily into a much bigger deal. And your dad pointed out that's specifically a girl thing, so maybe that's why I related to it a lot more, and maybe that's what made it so realistic, is that it was KB and Fern having that. Yeah,
KB and Fern have a little tiff.
A tiff.
In the beginning of the
episode.
Just
a tiff, and then they hugged at the end.
Yeah. They were a bit minged at each other.
And then I love that Wim and Neil are just like, okay, we'll split up, you know, and they just go with it.
That was great. I liked that it wasn't just Fern on her lonesome, you know. Yeah. Neil being the guy who just wants everyone to be happy all the time.
Well,
you know?
And that kind of shows Neil's growth too. Is
since
at Akron.
At Akron, Ohio.
You know, that episode, Neil has learned to, put himself out there a little bit more.
Yes.
And, he was following Fern, but he took charge of, like, I'll do the thing that I really just didn't want to do to help Fern. To
move things along.
To stay with Fern rather than, staying in his fear.
Yeah. So I guess rather than dance around it, do you want to just get into KB and Wim's side of things? Because I know that this is the thing that we had talked about previous to recording. And I know you were excited to discuss it.
Yeah, I thought that...
So I guess let's lay. I'm gonna lay the groundwork out. So they split up. They have this tiff, and Wim goes with KB, and I guess it's more the other way around. KB goes with Wim, and it's really wasn't that she agreed with Wim more. It was that it was a convenient excuse for her not to have to say like, "Well, I don't think I can climb that cliff the same way you guys can," which we'll get into. KB, we have that moment in the beginning of the episode where she needs maintenance on her modification that's been done to her head. We now know that it's not just a device that's been attached outward. It's much like things we've seen in the Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian with characters like Fennec Shand and the mods, where there are internal modifications made to keep you alive. And in KB's case, they have to have maintenance with a fuse cylinder, basically a charge cylinder, I think it was called, just a melted wires, just a conductor, basically. And over time, it gets fried, probably from going on adventures like this and doing very stimulating things. And so when this happens, she starts to literally slow down like a droid on low battery. And Fern knows how to fix her and work with her and stuff. And, of course, now that they have this little squabble, Fern is no longer there.
Yeah.
So KB has to walk Wim through this process. They did a great job with this scene, just tonally. I think it was great because I actually, as a person who... usually is, the characters, they'll get through it. Though I actually was wondering if Wim was going to have to try and run back and go get Fern because he didn't succeed in time in getting KB's, maintenance done. And it was great. I liked that the stakes felt high for the kids. Yeah. And it was a lot of fun. Yeah. So, speaking on a broader scale.
I think... Well, first of all, it explains why KB didn't want to go through the spa area with all the steam in the last episode.
Which, again, was set up in an earlier episode. We're like, okay, what does this mean?
Yeah.
Trust the writers, bro.
I thought it was like some cryptic thing. But really, it's just KB was preserving herself as long as possible. We also find out that KB has been modified due to an accident that happened. She said, like, ever since the accident or something like that. Yeah. And so now we know that it wasn't just experimental. It was because of...
And I don't need to know what the accident was. No, but... this is enough story for me to,
It was, it's good to know that on Aden, they would take those types of measures to preserve... a life like that.
It's good to know that Aden is on par with the technology of the rest of the Star Wars universe. While they don't have starships, they have all the rest of the technology that exists.
Yeah. So I thought that was good lore, just to understand what was going on. Because I was like, what's her deal? Does her parents work for the supervisor and she's a spy? Like that's where I was going, because she was being so cryptic in the last episode. Yeah. But it really was just her self-preservation. I really appreciated that whole scene and KB's explanation of why she was fighting with Fern, and why she hadn't explained what was going on. Yeah. That whole time, because I feel like that's such a real thing with, feeling left out. I know that, like, people with disabilities, like, that's the parallel here.
It's real.
Whether it's visible or not. Yeah. Of just, like, I want to be able to do everything that you can do, but I can't. So how do I explain that to a very headstrong person that's your best friend, like Fern?
And they also preface that KB was able to do all these things before her accident.
Yeah, before the accident.
So things change, and she doesn't know how to tell Fern, because Fern doesn't take the time to listen.
No. Yeah. And then, and then you have this heartfelt moment of Wim explaining that him and Neil are also her friends now, and so she's not going to be alone. Because that was the thing, is she was afraid that if she pushes back on Fern, Fern's going to
shut her out
and not be her friend anymore.
Which also fits the title of the episode is Zero Friends Again. And that's what KB says is, I'll have zero friends again. Yeah. It was great. I think
it was a sweet scene, but it also was like high stakes. Yeah, it was like
for them.
It was a little bit like tension, but also KB was explaining it very intelligently and sufficient that I felt was like it made sense, It
I have to commend Skeleton Crew for doing something that many Star Wars stories and stories across all different franchises and media recently have just failed miserably at doing, and it is portraying a message tastefully and intelligently. We just talked about, interpreting the situation with KB and how it can relate to our real lives and the real world in ways that, is more, but it also makes sense just in this small situation between these four characters. It's very refreshing to see this kind of writing in Star Wars, as opposed to the Book of Boba Fett finale episode, where we introduced the plot line that lasted 20 minutes, barely, of the city slickers versus the rural folk of Freetown, and how they don't like each other because they come from different backgrounds. But then they use each other's blasters, and they don't do anything to actually stop the droid anyway that's attacking them, but now they're friends. Like, that was such a dumb message. The message itself is not stupid, learning to coexist with people from different backgrounds. But the way that it was ham-fisted, I think, is what was so frustrating. And every time I watch that episode, I love the Book of Boba Fett finale. However, that little subplot just makes me roll my eyes every single time I watch it. And it's really refreshing to see in Skeleton Crew an important message for kids and for adults of all ages to put into the story and have a friend who can't do all the things. Neil has that same experience through his physicality rather than something like having an accident or something like that. Neil has short legs. Fern has long spindly legs, as he tells her, or long spider legs or something. Yeah. And Fern helps Neil. So we see that Fern is open to helping KB. She probably would. But KB was just afraid to let Fern know because of Fern's personality. Yeah. KB was afraid to let her know. And that's great. That's a great message to give kids, to be outspoken, talk to each other, communicate. Yeah. It's good messaging for children, and for adults, it's a great message as well, and it fits into the story very nicely.
Yeah, it's communicate with each other, but also understand that everyone can be different, Yes. You have that message, too, of not everyone can do the same thing, not everyone's able to do the same thing. Yeah. And if you explain it to others, accept them, Yeah. And I thought that was, I had to think about it a little bit. It wasn't just and I wish that people would accept me like this. Well, I do. And then that's the end of the scene.
I'm not neurotypical like the rest of you are. And I wish that people would accept me for my differences. That is the kind of dialogue that just makes me roll my eyes, because you're not trying as the writer. There's no effort for that.
Yeah, it was in universe. It made sense, and it was intelligent enough where I was like, oh wow, that was a really great conversation between two kids where they, at the end of the episode, everyone was on the same page.
It's great for your smooth brains because it just goes right over their head, and then they're like, oh, nothing really happened this episode. But then for us wrinkle-brained people, we get to dig deeper and actually analyze the phenomenal storytelling that is the Skeleton Crew.
So true. And I really enjoy watching this show.
Oh,
I look forward to it.
Yeah.
Like, when I sit down, I have found so much joy in watching this show.
It's a great show.
And I think this is another scene, like, because like you said, if this episode could have been deemed as nothing happened.
A filler.
And a filler, but I think it was necessary for the characters to grow, because that's what, with the pirate plot, this story is about these kids.
Yes.
And about Jod's character too, which I am assuming we'll get into next. So
yeah.
I thought this was a great episode to move that along until we get to all the craziness that I'm sure is going to happen in the next 2 episodes.
Yeah. So if you want to pivot to Jod next here. Jod has a really, really great scene on kind of like after his capture, when they leave Lenupa and they go back to wherever the fleet is. They are having Jod's trial. Jod's found guilty, death by airlock.
That was crazy, actually. I was like, dang.
There's a lot about the pirate code in this show, and I love the Star Wars pirate code because it's a little honorable, just as, pirates of the, 13 and 1400s would have been. Or that'd probably be more 15, 1600s, actually.
I have no idea.
Know your history. And it was great to see him give his last appeal. I love little Star Wars things like the hourglass being plasma.
Yeah.
and not just sand. Perfect. Make it Star Wars, just a little. And Jod gives this great speech about just being his manipulative self, fighting for scraps and claiming he knows where AT-ATN is, and because SM-33 does know. So they'll probably power on SM-33, they'll lead them to AT-ATN. I'm sure Jod will try and finagle something to, retake the captain's spot.
I did love him addressing Brutus, and he's like, Brutus is a great first mate.
Yes.
That's so, undermining of what has occurred.
I love Jude Law is a phenomenal actor.
Yeah.
And
that scene rocked.
Oh, that was so good. Where, it was honestly, it kind of reminded me of the energy that Skarsgård, what's his first name, plays Luthen Rail in Andor. Oh, that's going to crush me. I can't remember. But his speech that he gives to the spy in the ISB, the everything speech, I love. It's the same energy where you get these great actors, phenomenal actors to just provide such phenomenal performances. And it puts us, so now we know the pirates are headed to AT-ATN. They have the coordinates, they're going. The kids are also going to go to AT-ATN. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on with Jod? Because it was definitely a subplot.
I loved the shanty.
The shanty about AT-ATN.
That was just the little pirate cherry on top. I thought that was so cool. And that was his way. That's how he won it over. He did this whole speech about how he found it, and then he sings the shanty, and they're like, oh. And I thought that was such a cool moment. But anyway,
that's great.
That's all I have to say.
So they're going to the Republic Mint. The last mint. And then we have the kids. They get the Onyx Cinder back because it's being thrown to the garbage, essentially, by the people of Lenupa in the pleasure spa. And they get to the ship, and there's this almost like in a landfill, how you have those giant vehicles that roll around in the landfills. It was just eating up and burning up all the trash. There's some sort of vehicle. So they run to the ship. The ship is, getting eaten by this vehicle, essentially. they're working as a team. You know, everyone has their place. You know, Neil does the Fern does the steering, Neil does the hyperspace, the engines. Or no, KB's in charge of the engines. What does Neil do? Because Neil was gonna fly.
He does
the thrusters.
Yeah. Or whatever.
Yeah, and then Wim is in charge of the guns, and they're shooting it. It's not doing anything, and you really, again, I have that moment of like literally, you know, you're like, oh, your characters, they'll pull through, and I'm thinking like, oh, you know, the X-wings will save the day or something, but no, they're like, I'm like, oh man, they're just gonna have to abandon the ship, and then there's the button that SM-33 tells them not to press in like the second episode, the hull deconstruction button, which I thought was a self-destruct button for the ship, and they take a chance. Fern presses it, and you find this is so cool. I've never seen this in Star Wars that I can remember. The hull of the ship basically just crumbles off, and there's the actual Onyx Cinder is under that, and it's like this brand new ship. Looks a lot like a Mandalorian fighter. It's not, but it looks a lot like a Mandalorian gauntlet fighter, the way that the wings work. And they fly off, and now, because KB memorized the coordinates to Ad-Aten, they now also are headed to Ad-Aten. This was not how I was expecting this show to go. You've got the pirates and our heroes headed to the same place at the same time. Who do you think is going to get there first? I'm assuming the pirates are going to get there first, and the kids are going to have to, like, save everyone.
Now I'm thinking, because I feel like it's almost going to be at the same time.
Yeah.
Because they have to, like, boot up SM-33 and, like, get him going. I almost feel like the kids are going to pull up at Aden, think that they made it. Yeah. And be, like, trying to, like, you know, talking over each other, trying to explain what is going on. And then, like, the pirates show up. Or when the kids show up, their parents or Wim's dad is, like, getting arrested or something. Wham! Like, I think they're going to walk into more trouble just based off of what the parents have been trying to do. Because I think, I mean, they obviously have been doing stuff.
Right.
All along to try to find the kids. So I'm wondering if they show up and, you know, the parents push too hard that they, you know, are in trouble.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like the pirates are going to get there first. I think that there were two things in this episode that will come into play again. One being the X-Wings, because they made sure to mention them and talk about them. The other being the lightsaber. When they took Jod into custody, the pirates did, they lingered on the lightsaber again. There's a specific shot on that. I wonder if Wim is going to use the lightsaber. In the next couple episodes here, we'll get a shot with Wim using the lightsaber here. Thoughts? Doesn't mean he has to be force sensitive. Just
what if he is though?
That'd be cool.
What if they knock all the blockers on Aden and all of a sudden he's forced? No, that doesn't make any sense.
What if that's kind of like What if that's Jod's leverage? Like the kids are, like they have him. Like, you know, they've got him cornered. They're like, you know, like, free our parents or whatever. And he's like in the supervisor's tower. He's like, I pressed this button, and all the barrier fires down on the city, and there will be no more Ad-Aten. Yeah. I wonder, and then Wim does something with the lightsaber.
Yeah, he'd pull something like that. But
I don't know. That's kind of how I see it going now. My theory has changed so much.
Do you think Jod is gonna have a redemption arc, or do you think?
No, I don't think so now.
He's in it.
I think he's toast now. Yeah, I think he's a Hondo character. He's not a good guy. He's a dude that's out for himself, and you know, if he ends up on the bottom or on the top, so be it. He gets his treasure, he's out. He doesn't get his treasure, he's out. You know.
Yeah.
You know, maybe.
I still am holding out hope that he's gonna have a moment.
Yeah.
I think like Brutus or someone's gonna have the kids, and he's gonna make a switch. Like he's gonna have a here's my lightsaber moment.
That'd be cool.
And then he saves them. I would like to think that Jude Law is the good guy.
Would that be our moment where we finally realize that he actually does have the Force? Or I'm still kind of holding on to my theory that it's just a device.
Or...
in his glove or something.
Yeah, if it is a device, I'm waiting for that moment of, like, them, you know, pulling it out of his sleeve and...
I'm waiting for that moment of... Jod goes to use the Force to grab the lightsaber, and it goes past him, and Wim gets it. That'd be a cool moment.
Little Captain America.
Yeah, Thor's hammer
moment.
Mjolnir moment. That'd be cool. Yeah. Any other theories about the end of the show here?
I'm surprised that there wasn't another parent moment this episode. I'm stuck on that because last episode was when they touched base about Wim's dad.
I think they pretty much just hit on there's not much the parents can do to find their kids.
But they said that, I mean, Wim's dad and Fern's mom seemed like they were moving forward with something else.
Maybe, yeah.
So that's why I was kind of surprised that they didn't even touch on that. But also, there's only 2 episodes left.
Hey, there is something else I wanted to touch on specifically about this episode I thought was cool. So there's little crabs.
The crabbies.
That have little salvaged parts on them. Some are like a protocol droid's legs. Some are, you know, and they can speak. I'm assuming because they took like voice boxes from the droids and
follow me.
Yeah, follow. Friend. And the giant one, her name is Tetanus. And they're made of metal, so if she were to get you, you'd probably get tetanus.
Oh, that's funny.
So that creature is actually completely a real model made stop motion. Classic, like, done, you know, shot by shot. I know Doug Chang, who's an artist for Star Wars, does tons of art and practical stuff for Star Wars since, like, The Phantom Menace. He worked on that. And the Star Wars posted like a full like little short video about it. You could check it out. It's very cool. I actually highly recommend. I think on Instagram and YouTube they posted a thing how they put that together. The model is really only like a foot tall, and they did a great job of incorporating that. It's done so smoothly that you can. There's only like a moment or two where you can tell that it's actually stop motion. Very well done. I really appreciate effects like that in Star Wars. It was a lot of fun. I
think that's also just seen throughout this show is that they've really kind of gone back to that classic either puppetry or stop motion or, you know, some type of physical effect that is showing all the alien species that we've talked about before. It feels so classic Star Wars, this show. And I think that's why there's like barely any CGI besides obviously the ships and the space parts. But
so what do we rank this episode? Rate this episode on a scale of 1 to 10.
Rating it, I would say like a 7.5 or an 8.
9. I'm at 9 again. Just because of how good the character moments were in this episode. I can't not give this episode a high rating because of how good the character moments were. They just did so much for me. I'm taking this writing back. Please, welcoming it with open arms. Star Wars, a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. Please give me more of this writing. I'm in. This was awesome. I'm so in. I actually know so many people. This has been so great to hear. Who are like, you know, I've been liking Skeleton Crew so much. I initially was out on the action figures. I think I'm going to buy all the action figures now for Skeleton Crew. I think I'm going to go get the Lego set of the Onyx Cinder. Like, I think I'm going to go. It's great. This is awesome. This is what you want to hear, that kind of reception that I feel like we haven't, you hear it and or you hear people praise all the time, but it's not that, well, I'm going to make sure I go buy all the action figures now and I'm going to go, no, this is great.
Yeah. I mean, we were trying to find Neil's action figure
around Christmas time
and it was completely sold out. I think.
Yeah, Logan and I did a figure bounty hunting vlog on Christmas Eve. We went out. We hit like three Walmarts, a Target, 2 or 3 GameStops, and nowhere. You could find every other Skeleton Crew figure, no Neil. Neil was nowhere to be found.
Because he rocks.
Because he's the most popular character.
Neil Nation.
Neil Nation. Stand up. Yeah, I'm in. This show, it's been so nice. Just a palate cleanser, clearly, for the community. It's been great to see the reception of Skeleton Crew.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
Jen, anything else you have to add?
I guess not.
No, this is probably going to be a shorter episode here because I also have nothing really to add here. I think we've touched on everything I wanted to touch on with this episode. I feel like we talked about it at good length. And there's just not a lot going on with Star Wars right now. There's not a lot of articles circulating around, which also is kind of nice to not have constant drama going on with actors, walking and directors getting tabled and things getting shelved, and it's just great to just have a show that's coming out, everyone's having fun, and we know what's coming out next, which is Andor Season 2. And with that, I think that's going to be all for the Blitzcast this week. So definitely check out all the content I've got on my YouTube channel. I've been posting some bangers recently. If you're an action figure person, you'll really enjoy that content. Again, check out all the links in the description below. Check out Jen's podcast, The Real Normal Pod. It's got some really good content coming out soon. She's got some good ideas on the table, and I think you'll enjoy it if you like real life talk rather than just this fantasy world, this stupid, goofy-off fantasy world that I love to talk about.
Yeah. Sunday morning, 8 a.m., Santa's coming.
Yeah, boy. So with that, guys, I hope you all are enjoying the new year. I hope everyone had safe travels, so you're in good health. Let's crush it in 2025. It's going to be a great year, and we're going to make the most of it, even if it's a bad year. So, guys, we'll catch you for the next podcast. See you next time. May the Force be with you.
Happy New Year!